Good morning and welcome to Mornings on the Hill. I'm Monica Hammer.
And I'm Mike Carter. Thanks for waking up with us this morning. It's time to get your orange juices flowing with a look at today's headlines. Here's a look at where students have been lined up for hours. Coming up, our own Max Darrow will tell you what they've been lined up for.
And celebrating 41 years on campus, the Theta Xi Chapel celebrated. Thanks students for their support with a surprise free concert. Our reporter Cheyenne Devon will tell you all about it.
Good morning. In just a few minutes, we'll show you our exclusive interview with Congressman John Katko.
But first, we're getting close to the Final Four, both of them.
The men will be headed to Houston and the women to Indianapolis. Let's take a look at Orange Sports. Just adding up to the Final Four excitement here on campus, the Student Association is chartering 3 buses to the men's Final Four game in Houston, giving students a free way to get there. Mornings
on the Hill reporter Max Darrow joins us live from the Shine Student Center, where some students have been waiting since midnight for their chance to get a seat.
Well, that's right, Monica. Some of these students have been here since midnight, 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, 3. They've been camping outside the building until they were let in at 7:30 this morning because they are in line to get bus tickets for the game. Now, as you can see, this is a first-come, first-served basis. Take a look behind me. You've got probably 100 students right there waiting to get their tickets. Now, the reason the tickets are free. Plane tickets, on the other hand, are very, very expensive. We looked up what a plane ticket would cost today, and it came out as the cheapest one at $1,269. Now, that cheap flight leaves at 6 in the morning on Friday, has 2 stops, arrives in Houston early in the afternoon, and the way back leaves Tuesday at 5 in the morning with 2 more stops. However, one student has told me she bought her ticket moments after the Orange won their Elite 8 game versus Virginia. She's joining me now. Louise Chenard is a senior, and Louise, when did you buy your ticket?
I bought my ticket the moment after we won. I was not even back from Chuck's yet. I purchased it on my phone. I had talked to my parents about it months ago as a joke. Oh, Syracuse goes, can I go? And they had said yes, not realizing that it was actually a possibility.
So if you don't mind me asking, how much was your ticket?
So when I purchased it, it was around $650 face value. Fortunately, I had friggin' flyer miles. I brought that down. The best part is, you know, it's only $650 and it has 1 stop. You know, I leave Syracuse at 3:30, get in at 8:30, so it's really convenient.
So, Louise, you're a senior. You had an opportunity to go to the Final Four your freshman year. Did you go then?
I did not go to the Final Four my freshman year. I wanted to, but as a freshman, I couldn't find that many people who were going, and I didn't want to go alone, which is one of the reasons that I had said, if Syracuse goes my senior year, I am going without a doubt, which is why I booked my flight so early, because I didn't wait on anyone else to book it.
So are you traveling with a group of friends, or are you going on your own?
I have one friend who's coming with me, but other than that, I'm meeting up with a dad's family friend, and they have a big group who lives in Houston who's all going to the game, but I do have one person with me.
So if the Student Association offered these buses earlier instead of last night at 10:30 at night, would you have changed your mind and taken a free bus to Houston?
No. For me, it just 30 hours there. If we were to lose on Saturday night, 30 hours back, you're on a bus twice as long as you're in Houston, and I don't think it would have been worth it.
So Final Four weekend in Houston has a lot of different festivities, from concerts to just student events. What else are you looking forward to this weekend?
I'm definitely looking forward, well, first to the weather, just to be able to be in Houston with the nice weather, but also I will go to a few of the concerts on on Saturday, and then Sunday we're going to go find a bar or, you know, a little sports area to watch the women's game. So I'm really excited just to be in Houston with all the festivities.
So Louise, the final question for you is, what are you looking forward to most about the game?
I'm hoping that we're going to, just play up to UNC's level. Even if the game's competitive, I'll be happy. Obviously, I'm hoping for a win. If we beat UNC, I think we'll win the whole thing.
Well, Louise, thank you so much for being with us. Now, whether it's by plane or a 30-hour bus ride, students will be making a 1,600-mile trek to Houston to see the Orange play the North Carolina Tar Heels this Saturday in the Final Four. Live in the Shine Student Center for Mornings on the Hill, I'm Max Darrow.
Well, thanks, Max. Monica, 30 hours on a bus. Can you imagine that?
It's a long time.
Well, you got to be a dedicated SU fan for sure. Well, good luck to both the men and women this weekend. And in case you skimmed through the email from our SA president, Aisha Sadat, last night, here are the details to get you to Houston.
SA is providing free bus transportation to the men's Final Four game. There are only 3 buses, and tickets are on a first-come, first-served basis at the Shine box office this morning. The buses leave from Shine at 8 p.m. tomorrow night and will decide when to return based on the outcome of the game on Saturday.
And for anyone staying behind to watch the game from home, you can look forward to a pep rally later today.
Head to Manley Fieldhouse at 12:30 to help send off the men's and women's basketball teams to their respective Final Four games this weekend.
You might see some familiar faces. Mayor Stephanie Miner and County Executive Joni Mahoney are just a few of the special guests, so don't forget to wear your orange.
Definitely great that all these officials are going to be coming out to support the orange. Are you headed there later today?
I will be headed down there after the show. Of course, Joni Mahoney and Mayor Miner, both SU grads, so good to see that they're showing their school spirit.
Definitely great. And the Maxwell School of Citizenship and Public Affairs graduate program has been named #1 by the U.S. News and World Report for the 8th year in a row.
This year, the program tied with Indiana University.
According to the Associate Dean of the school, David Van Slyke, the 12-month program has a strong connection to the social sciences.
Van Slyke says there are several components that set the program apart from others, including small classes, a world-renowned faculty, and commitment to the students.
The commitment to the students is not just before they get here and while they're here, it's building relationships with them over the course of their careers. And I think one of the things that we feel so excited about and proud about is the aspirations and ambitions of our students.
There are about 270 public affairs programs across the country.
The Maxwell School's accelerated 12-month program, as opposed to most 2-year programs, also helps set it apart from others. It's great that they have such a cool program and that they're getting this recognition.
Absolutely, and as a grad student myself, it's always good to see the grad programs here at SU doing well and nationally renowned.
What's better than a surprise concert featuring 2 of the hottest hip-hop artists when that concert is also free?
Our reporter Cheyenne Devon joins us to talk about how they celebrated over 40 years on campus.
Of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated hosted their annual Sigma Week, which included various events all over campus. They kicked off that week starting with Spot a Sigma, where students could go and find a brother of the fraternity, take a picture with them, use the hashtag Spot a Sigma, and for every picture that used the hashtag, they donated $1 to the March of Dimes. Then they also had the Evening of Black Expressions, which was a big gala held at the Drumlins Country Club. Now, what everybody was really excited about was the concert, and this concert was packed. It was so much fun. They really got the students involved. They had 2 of the hottest hip-hop artists out there right now. They had Metro Boomin and Young Thug. Now, Metro Boomin is known for, he's worked with Kanye West, he's worked with Future, he's worked with Drake, and they were able to really get the crowd going and get students on stage dancing, and everybody was just having such a great time. Metro Boomin was on stage, and he was keeping the crowd motivated, and then you also had Young Thug, who's best known for his song Best Friend right now, and so he was donning a Syracuse sweatshirt, so he wanted to show his Syracuse pride and spirit, and so he was joining the students, and they were having so much fun. Now, all of the money that they raised throughout Sigma Week was donated to raise money for the Flint, Michigan water crisis relief. So that's what happened over the weekend, and back to you guys.
Coming up after the break, we'll air our exclusive sit-down interview with Congressman John Katko.
And you won't want to miss our behind-the-scenes look at the Chime Masters headquarters.
Hear these musicians chime in on what makes their organization so special. On the Hill reporter Jacob Reynolds sat down with Congressman John Katko for an exclusive interview earlier this week.
The two of them discussed everything from the GOP nomination process to the Final Four this weekend.
All right, well, good morning. Thank you for joining us today, Congressman. It's a pleasure. We're joined here today by John Katko, New York's 24th District Congressman, and we'll get right started with the story that is dominating politics right now, the Republican nomination process.
But not Syracuse University basketball?
We'll get to it. We'll get to it. Don't worry.
All right.
Donald Trump has obviously dominated coverage everywhere. You've said that you'll support whoever the eventual nominee is. Does that include Mr. Trump?
Well, it does include anybody on the Republican side that's running, so obviously it would technically include him as well, for sure. The bottom line is it's still way too early to tell. There's still a lot of delegates to be had, and there's still a convention, and whether or not anyone is going to gather enough of the delegates pre-convention is a big question. If they do, it's a done deal, but if not, you know, it's going to turn the convention into a very interesting spectacle.
Now, New York's primary is approaching. It'll be in April. Do you think you're going to make an endorsement before then?
No, I'm just going to endorse. Not endorse. I will support whoever the Republican nominee is, and obviously by the New York primary, there will be no nominee yet. Right. So I'm going to wait until I know who that person is.
Now, do you think Mr. Trump and his antics with Mr. Cruz is hurting your party at all?
Well, I mean, it remains to be seen. I think it's still early in the race. It's still early to see what their messaging is, because let's face it, you know, none of them have really talked in detail about what their platforms are, and quite fairly on the other side as well, on the Democratic side either. You hear a lot more rhetoric than you do actual plans about what they're doing. So I think the American people are willing to get past this nonsense that's out there now on both sides of the aisle, and when you start talking to concrete plans and concrete platforms, that's when people are really going to pay attention, I think, and that's when I'll be excited as well.
Well, I think we've given enough time to Mr. Trump. We'll turn local now. Sure. You have your own election to win in November, re-election term. After 2 years, what do you think is your greatest accomplishment so far? What are you most proud of?
My independent streak. I've reached across the aisle repeatedly. I said I was going to do that during the election. I'm doing it, and I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I've had 8 bills pass the House, which is remarkable. My predecessor in 4 years had none. So I think the common thread in every single one of those bills that have passed the House is that I have a Democratic co-sponsor as a primary co-sponsor of the bill. So every single bill I've had passed, I've had Democrat support, and significant Democrat support. Because of that, I think I'm really striking a different chord in Congress, where many people are very partisan. I'm very bipartisan, and it's really paying dividends for me personally.
Alrighty, and speaking of, in your district, you have a large college campus. On top of that, recently you took the House floor to raise awareness for the Vera House White Ribbon Campaign against domestic violence and sexual assault. In the fall, you appeared with Vice President Joe Biden and Senator Gillibrand, also from New York, for the It's On Us campaign, fighting similar issues. How do you think we're doing on the fight against sexual assault and relationship violence?
Well, before I answer, there's one other thing I did too, is I appeared on a panel discussion with Senator Gillibrand even before those 2 events that you mentioned. So I think in any major issue, the first step is awareness. And by doing these events with them, and these high-profile events, we're raising the awareness, which is job 1, and then go from there. So I think step 1, we're doing a very good job together as a team. And again, Senator Gillibrand and I are on opposite ends of the political spectrum, and same with Vice President Biden. But we're working together because this is something for the common good, and that's what people want to see. So I think right now we're going in the right direction with it. The awareness needs to continue, but definitely going in the right direction. But at some point you need to go from awareness to positive legislative action if that's going to help.
All right, and turning to more recent international events. First, a little history. In a September report, you helped author, along with the House Homeland Security Committee, that report called Combating Terrorists and Foreign Fighters Travel. In a study done from March to September of last year, one of the findings in that report was that there was a, quote, gaping security weaknesses overseas. And that was from a press release that came out with that report. Obviously, given recent attacks in Paris and in Brussels, that is proving to be horrifyingly correct.
Oh, absolutely right. That task force you're referring to is actually a task force that I headed up. I was selected by the head of Homeland Security to run this task force, and I had 4 of the Republicans and 3 other Democrats work with me on that report. And we traveled to the Middle East and to Western Europe, and saw for ourselves firsthand what the security gaps are. And they were really manifested in what happened in Paris and what's happened more recently in Brussels. I mean, there are serious security gaps that need to be taken care of. And it's important for us because if there's security gaps in Western Europe, it's going to make us much more vulnerable here in the U.S. because with almost all the Western European countries, we have what's called visa waiver programs where they can fly into the United States visa-free. And that's really important because people can slip into this country that shouldn't be here. And a lot of those individuals that we're most concerned about have connections to ISIS and foreign fighters in Syria and Iraq. And when they come back to Western Europe, radicalized and ready to do more damage on their homelands, they're also ready to come over to the United States and do the same thing. And we saw from San Bernardino that someone did come into our country from that area and caused some pretty significant carnage, and 14 killed and 14 wounded in San Bernardino. So it's a real problem, and I'm very proud of that report because national security and anti-terrorism efforts are going to be at the forefront, I think, this whole election cycle.
All right, last question here before we get to your final four picks. You have publicly criticized Governor Cuomo's push to raise the minimum wage to $15. We've talked about it before. You've said it, constituents have said it would be a job killer, it would hurt businesses. And you also have just released an alternative to mandated paid leave for families. Your act is called the Working Parents Flexibility Act, which would allow parents to put tax-free income into a parental savings account. So why, in re-election in November, would a minimum wage worker with a family or a family hopefully on the way, why would they support you?
Because they want to save jobs, they want to kill jobs. And a lot of times, in New York State especially, things are done in Albany that they cut off their nose to spite their face. When they were contemplating raising the federal minimum wage to $10.50 an hour, a bipartisan, non-political study group came out with estimates at least 500,000 people would lose their jobs. The very people you're trying to help are going to lose their jobs. So it's a job killer. If you raise the minimum wage at $15 an hour, especially in upstate New York, there's going to be thousands and probably hundreds of thousands of job losses, if not more. I was talking to a fellow who owns a factory here, a printing factory, has about 300 employees. He has a department that they get paid around $11 an hour, 47 people in it. He said if it goes at $15 an hour, I'm just going to have to eliminate that department. And a lot of other people are talking as well. The job cuts are the only way to survive because you cannot just handle a 67% increase in base minimum wage. And my biggest concern is if you're going to raise the minimum wage, that's fine. But you've got to have offsets with respect to the cost for businesses, such as tax relief, so that the businesses aren't getting crushed with these things you just can't handle as a business. 99% of businesses in New York State, 99% are small business. And every small businessman will tell you, we cannot afford a $15 minimum wage. We're going to have to kill jobs to do it, or make ends meet. That's not what you want. So if you're going to do it smart way. Do it so that businesses aren't hurt as much by giving them tax relief or cost relief somewhere, somehow, is what I think. Now, with respect to the paid family leave, it's a way to make sure that poor people don't get stuck again. Because if you're working poor and you don't want to take family leave, you don't have family, whatever, you're still paying a tax under all those proposals in New York State and under Senator Gillibrand's plan. They all get taxed more at a very time when they're trying to get out of poverty. On the other hand, if you're planning for a family and it's upon you to voluntarily plan ahead by saving a little bit, save what you can, you can make it a little bit easier if you want to take some time after you have your children for the first year. And businesses, if they want to attract more talent and young talent, maybe they can voluntarily join a program too. So by making it voluntary as opposed to mandated for everybody, and avoid another institutional tax and another line in your paycheck, I think it helps the working poor instead of hurts them, and that's what I'm trying to do.
All right, real quick before we get out of here, Syracuse or North Carolina?
Oh, Syracuse is going to whoop them.
All right, and then Syracuse or Washington?
Syracuse is going to beat Villanova.
All right, are you going to either?
I hope, but we'll see. But I can tell you this much. I had 7 out of the 8 in the final 8, and 3 out of 4 in the final 4, and I have Syracuse in my bracket, winning it all against Villanova. So
all righty, well, thank you for joining us, Congressman. It's been our pleasure.
Okay, take care.
Now, that entire interview will be posted to our website, nccnewsonline.com, later today. And Congressman Katko's opponent this fall could be one of 3 Democratic candidates: Colleen Deacon, who is a former employee of Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, SU professor Eric Kingston, or attorney Steve Williams. And one thing, he did mention it right there at the end, he made sure to get it in. He was so happy about 7 of his 8 Final Four picks being correct. I think out of anything, if I had asked him again, what was your biggest accomplishment of the last 2 years, he would have kept giving me that number, 7 out of 8. He was so pleased with that.
Absolutely. And you mentioned, you pressed him on the Donald Trump and whether Trump is hurting the party or not. He really didn't want to take a stand on that. And kind of unusual, or maybe not unusual, playing politics for the leading presidential candidate from New York State for the Republican Party.
Right. Well, we did want to press him on that because he has so far not given an endorsement. And you're seeing a lot of people in the Republican Party picking sides, Ted Cruz or Donald Trump. A lot of people forgetting about Ohio Governor John Kasich. And so we wanted to ask him again, you know, you have this opportunity, you want to make an endorsement. The primary is approaching in April. You know, is Trump hurting? Do you want to endorse him, endorse Cruz, and take that chance? And he is sticking firm to that line. He's just not getting into it.
Yeah.
He said the biggest thing he's stressing is he's going to support whoever it is. He did mention that several times. The Republicans getting his support, he'll make sure to point out what he wants to do differently, what he thinks he wants to do differently. But getting an endorsement out of him was just not going to happen.
Thanks, Jacob. Appreciate it.
Thank
Great
you.
interview. Well, you've heard the bells, but do you know who's behind that beautiful music?
Stay with us to get a rare look inside the Krause Bell Tower with the Chime Masters. If you've spent any time on the Hill, there's no doubt that you've heard the Krause bells.
Bells have been ringing here at Syracuse since the 1800s, but most students don't know who rings them. Our own reporter Nicole Griffin got an inside look at the Chime Masters. Nicole?
Thanks, Mike and Monica. After World War II, the Krause bells did fall silent for a time until the Chime Masters were created. Since then, they have chimed the bells 3 times a day without fail. They like to consider themselves a secret organization, never being recognized for their music until now.
The Chime Masters are one of Syracuse University's best-kept secrets. And even if you've never heard their name before, you've definitely heard their music. This secret organization is in charge of ringing the Krause bells. No one knows much about them, and the head Chime Masters like to keep it that way.
That's kind of how we wanted it to be. We wanted to keep it a mystery as to who is up in the tower
Nick and Brian have been chiming since they were sophomores after being tapped to become members of this elite club.
We came up here and we were just told, play something.
Since then, they have spent hundreds of hours hidden away in the bell tower perfecting their chiming. But when asked about his favorite song to play, Brian had a hard time choosing.
I don't know, I like all the classical stuff.
Nick, on the other hand, prefers a different kind of classic.
I have an arrangement of songs from Zelda, Ocarina of Time that I like to play.
And while they don't get any credit for their music,
I'd say the way that people react on campus when they hear our bells, whether posting on Twitter or just talking about it, that's recognition enough for us.
in fact, the Chime Masters have found that ringing the bells brings just as much joy to them as it does to their audience.
One day, I was having a bad day and I came up here and I rang the bells for an hour straight. And I felt pretty good afterwards, although I was a little sore.
They feel at home in this bell tower, where the history is literally written on the walls.
I don't actually see a signature next to it, but it's the date, May 8th, 1901, which is the earliest one I've found so far.
For Nick, there's one signature he plans on looking for in the future.
I know that my own will be something that I can come back and see and remember that I was always here.
Nick and Brian are both graduating in May, and while their time as Chime Masters will soon come to a close,
This is one of the most unique things I'll ever have gotten to do.
they'll keep ringing the bells until it's time for their final bow.
Brian and Nick say they have still not chosen the next generation of Chime Masters, but that they have some candidates in mind that they think will keep their legacy alive. Now let's take a look at what's happening on the Hill this weekend. Cheyenne?
An evening of amazing blues music with Mike Zito and The Wheel upstairs at Dinosaur Barbecue. All proceeds from this event will benefit the New York State Blues Fest. Doors open at 7 p.m. and the show begins at 8. Now on Friday kicks off a big weekend for Orange sports teams, beginning with men's tennis. The SU men's team will take on Wake Forest Friday afternoon at 3 at Drumlins Country Club. And you've been waiting for this all week. It's the NCAA men's basketball Final Four game live from Houston. Syracuse versus the University of North Carolina, Saturday night at 8:49 p.m. You can catch all of the action on TBS, but of course there will be many viewing parties right here on campus as well. We'll keep you updated with those on our Twitter at Mornings on the Hill. And the Orange action continues into Sunday as the SU women's basketball team takes on the University of Washington in the NCAA Women's Final Four. That's right, we have 2 teams in the Final Four. That's going to be live from Indianapolis at 8:30 p.m. and that game will air on ESPN2. That about wraps it up for what's going on the Hill.
Thanks, Cheyenne. We have some good news, Monica, for wine lovers out there. A new study from NASA and Harvard suggests that the changing climate could bring some positive side effects, higher quality wines.
A warmer climate means an earlier harvest, and when grapes are picked earlier in the year, vineyards are much more likely to have high-quality wines. But the study warns that's only true to a certain point. If it gets too hot, wine lovers might have a problem. That's all the time that we have for you this morning. Thank you for squeezing the most out of it. With us, I'm Monica Hammer, and for Mike Carter, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for being with us, Syracuse. Great.
Sorry, I just totally cut you.